Oh, okay, you're free to go.
Hi, welcome. Um, I'm Monica Shaw. I'm the Deputy Director of Collections and Conservation at the Anchorage Museum, and I welcome all of the attendees from the Alaska Historical Society who are joining us today. I want to acknowledge that I'm presenting to you from the homelands of the Dena'ina, the unceded territory, and we thank the many generations who have cared for this land on which we work and live. And I wouldn't be here today if not for their care of this place that I call home. So thank you for that. And I'd like to welcome you to the Anchorage Museum for a tour of our archives and library. And we're going to walk into the space and let you get a sense of what it's like to come visit us. And hopefully we'll see you in person soon.
Just giving everyone a little bit of a view. We have a redesign, so we've got photos on the wall and the windows. And this is our space, so we are walking in now.
So I know many of you have been to the museum and been to our archives and library, but I wanted to kind of set the stage for what you're going to see today. And so the collections here at the Anchorage Museum are comprised of both archives and library, which are sort of, we focus on photographic materials, though we do have other ephemera, and we have published materials like books and maps and journals, and we have a variety of other like scrapbooks and things that all kind of contribute to tell the story of Alaska. But the collections also we care for the cultural belongings of many peoples, including the indigenous peoples of Alaska and the Circumpolar North, contemporary artwork also of people of all people. We have lots of historical resources of early Anchorage and other early Alaskan history. And so I always like to remind people when they come to visit our like one part of our collection that we have so many resources that can really help tell the story of Alaska in a more complete way, and not to just focus on maybe published resources or photographic resources, that we also have cultural belongings from all people, not just Indigenous people. We also have a variety of things. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our two archivists who are going to lead the tour today, Chloe Nielsen and Heather McLean.
Hi, I'm Chloe Nielsen.
Hi, and I'm Heather McLean.
So we're here to show you the archives, and we've got a few different things to talk about, a few different stations set up that we'll walk you through today. I think we're going to start off talking about our redesign. So you saw on the outside how we have the new images on the windows to sort of give people a sense that we are primarily a photo archives. We ran a survey of people who use and don't use the space, and one of the big things that we got told was that people didn't really know what we had. So the idea behind that is to send the message that we're photographs. So that's the first part of the redesign.
Yeah, so, and also being an archival space, it works really great for us working and processing the collection, but people didn't really feel like they could come in and be welcomed in the space. So one of the big changes that we have a temporary table here right now, but we're getting a new table and chairs to have a bigger meeting space, which has been a welcome surprise for us. It has been extremely utilized when we have groups come in, like we're doing a digital repatriation project with Chickaloo Native Village, and elders and researchers that have come in with that project. It's been really great for them to be at the table together and to be able to go through and share in a central space and not be, as some of you probably know, coming to our space, we have some reading tables behind, which are great for individual researchers, not so great for groups. So that's one of our major changes, and you can see the nice wood tone, warm wood. We're going to be incorporating that in different areas of the space as well, including the bookcase behind us and some of the drawers behind. And you can also see this lovely blue that we have. That was another one of the comments that we got from the wonderful surveys that our outreach archivist, Julie Marie, so expertly handled in doing outreach and asking people what they thought with her surveys and then compiling that data for us so that we could then make it into a comprehensible dialogue with our design team who are handling a lot of this. But this blue color, it's blue. It brings a little more color into our white, gray, and dark colored space. So we love it. Hopefully people love it too. And at the front desk, there's blue as well. And there will also be lettering, Chinang Guninyu, which is Denina, thank you, you came here. So another element of acknowledging where we are and the space that we live and work. So exciting changes. If you haven't been,
And as you
please do
can
kind of
see,
go for it.
and as you can see on the back wall too, the offices back there have a nice Alaskan scenery image as well. So sort of just also trying to incorporate that, not only the photograph element, but also some visual interest, and trying to make it just a little bit more welcoming and inviting for people to walk in and experience the space and see what we have to offer that maybe in the past wouldn't have known to come into an archives.
And so that leads us into another key aspect of our scope of collections moving forward. We do have a very strong Indigenous focus in our collection, both in archives and library and also on the art and material culture side. But we didn't have a comprehensive understanding of Black and other people of color and other historically marginalized communities that are in our collection. So it really was a great conversation starter for us to think about that, and was part of, I don't know if anyone saw the wonderful Black Lives in Alaska exhibition that we had last year in our atrium space. A lot of those photos in that exhibit came from our archives and were also incoming collections, including the one that we have on the table. So we can move around and show you that. One of the partnerships that Julie Burry has been able to cultivate is with History Makers, which is the largest African-American oral history program in the country, maybe even the world, I'm not 100% sure. But through that partnership and working with History Makers, who are all, I think 18 to 20 individuals have been interviewed so far, pretty much to document their life and their experience in Alaska. And one of those individuals was Eleanor Andrews, who is, she's been in Alaska about 50 years, civic entrepreneur, raised her family here, built her business here, is very active in the community today. And so what we're doing with these collections is we're changing our model a little bit. As Monica and Chloe both touched on, we are primarily a photo archives. But what we have discovered in talking with these individuals as we bring in their personal archives is it's not just photos and papers that are important to them. So for Eleanor in particular, this is one of the things that she values most, and it is her Athena Award for Businesswoman of the Year in 1995. Her business is the Andrews Group, and this trophy was commissioned and made specific to her. So it's a very unique item and something that helps tell her story. And since that is part of the whole impetus of bringing these collections in, is having more diverse and equitable representation in our collection, it's a wonderful thing to be coming in for us. And we're working to bring in other materials like that. The one that just came in recently is Cal Williams and Mayfield Evans, and we're going to be working to bring other History Maker collections in as well.
Do you want to share about some of these photographs?
Absolutely. So one of the cool things with Eleanor, she was born and raised in Compton, California. So we have, this is a photo of Eleanor with her 4 siblings. Yeah, absolutely. And I do have clean hands, just so everyone knows. Sorry, trying to reduce the glare a little bit.
Yeah, so that's Eleanor on the far left.
Yeah, Eleanor is over here. And then her sister Jackie was also in Alaska and actually has a really cool story working up on the pipeline, and was one of the first female and Black tech personnel. I can't remember exactly what her position was, but was in like Life magazine for an article and photo. And then this photo is of Eleanor at her graduation. Okay. And kind of a cool photo. It's hand tinted, which doesn't happen a whole lot anymore, so it's a great item to have. And then this is a signed photograph. So Eleanor has a lot of experience. She started out working random jobs. She worked at an ice cream shop here in Anchorage, and then she got on and was a counselor at McLaughlin, and then went to work for Bill Sheffield in his cabinet. And then she's done so much. I can't even think of all of it off the top of my head. Okay. And then this is another great example of, so Eleanor is very focused on her family and her friends. Those are her primary relationships that she puts most of her energy into. So that's what she also wanted represented in her personal archive. So this is her son, Franklin, and her daughter. Oh my gosh, why am I spacing on her daughter's name? I am so sorry. But this is a trip that they went to see Hamilton in New York. So it's a wonderful memory for her. And it's now in our archives. But one of the things to stress for any of these collections coming in, we are scanning and making available all of the materials for the family. So if her daughter came in and wanted a copy of this photo, we would offer it to her at no cost and do it at whatever resolution she was looking for. So this certificate, the Andrews Group and Eleanor were also very involved in the renovation and reconstruction of Fairview Elementary. So this is a certificate just acknowledging that civic engagement and gives a little bit more context to the business side of Eleanor's archives.
So there's, I just like to point out, it's like there's a variety of materials in these collections that are coming in through the history makers.
Yes, very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so even though we primarily, in most of our collections, will only have photographs, not exclusively, but primarily, but these will be a little bit more mixed with paper records, 3D objects like the Athena Award that we looked at earlier, sometimes maybe manuscripts.
We also have a couple handwritten thank you cards from a holiday party from elementary school students that came to the Andrews Group Christmas party. So wonderful variety. And then in other collections, we also have scrapbook pages.
Sometimes binders of files and
So it really, each collection is amazing because it is unique to the individual. So it's been amazing. And the cool thing for us too is to be able to go through the records with the individuals themselves. As everyone has probably experienced on this call, a lot of the records that you deal with in an archives and even museum, you don't get to talk to the creator. So sometimes you're inferring a lot from the records that you're looking at. And for us, I'm able to go through and ask Eleanor, like, I couldn't identify this person in this photo. Do you remember? And one day she may be like, no, let me think on it. And then within about 30 minutes, she's like, oh, I talked to so-and-so. Yes, it's this person. So it's a wonderful opportunity for us to learn and have that engagement with the community as well. So
I think you might have mentioned this, but I'll reiterate that a lot of the work that we're doing right now is in response to what the community is requesting of us.
yes.
And we're doing a lot of listening and a lot of how can we support these communities. And so many people and so many communities, that these are the sub-communities within Alaska and specifically Anchorage, what they felt the need for is how to archive their stories.
Yes.
And even though we're predominantly a photo archive, as Heather mentioned and Chloe mentioned, we are accepting other materials in that context in order to support the requests that we are having. And that relationship and that work that we're doing has really opened not only our eyes, but I think other people's eyes as to what stories can be told. And I know you all work in that world and do that really great work. So it's really nice to be able to support community members telling their own stories, not just historians telling their story. And so I think it's going to create a future where there's a lot more variety and resources for people to utilize to get a more accurate story.
Right. Yeah. And also to speak to the outreach and going out, we have had one program, but are hoping to have others where we're actually going out to community events and tabling and having resources where people can ask us questions. Like I have this photograph, how do I care for it? Or I would like to take everything out of my garage, what materials should I be putting things into? So we can give recommendations on archival materials as well, and different levels of storage and care. So it's, if you want how we would do it in the archive, we can give you those examples. But then if you're doing it on a budget, just trying to get it done, we can also give those recommendations as well. So that's been a really great engagement for us too. Yeah. So we're gonna move back here to give you a little sense. We've been talking about digitization and making things accessible. One of those great avenues for us to do that is our scanning station, which I'll let Chloe talk about.
We've got a wonderful digitization technician here, Amy Valentine, who's been doing incredible work for us, helping us with our grant-funded project where we are doing digital repatriation with the Chickaloon tribe. So we're not physically deaccessioning our images and giving them to the tribe, but we are creating digital surrogates of anything and everything that they could want that is relevant to their community, and giving them complete control over the metadata and how those images are shared. And so a large part of Amy's projects is to work on those files and assist in getting those images to the tribe. And she's also doing some other things as well. Working on, currently she's working on seeing what all of our AV materials are, doing a full inventory, and just sort of assessing that, because it's not our, primary thing, but we do have some that are in different, formats and stages of being, so. And then we could go to the workroom.
Head to the workroom and just point out that behind us is our library stacks. We also have rare books downstairs in our
Sorry about that camera operator error.
Currently, we are working to cull some of our old and duplicate materials out, and that is primarily to make room for the Wells Fargo collection that we brought in. And we have a wonderful cataloger who's also going through and cataloging those books and checking to make sure that we have duplicates? Is the copy that we're getting in better than the copy that we have? Switching things out. And then those materials we are also offering and trying to find good homes for. So we've taken boxes upon boxes out to Wasilla Public Library. We've transferred stuff over to UAA Consortium Library. We've sent stuff down to Juneau and I think up to Fairbanks. So
All over.
all over.
Monica, while you're walking, there's a question. David Ramser wonders, what criteria does the museum use in determining whether to accept a collection?
So we have a group decision making, I guess. I don't know how else. It's not a formal committee, but it is all three archivists who work at the museum and myself, who I am on the acquisitions committee. And so we focus on items within our mission, of course. And so that has changed over the years. But we look at our strengths and we try we try to follow some of the guidelines that previous archivists that have set up sort of our focus here. And so obviously don't want to compete with other archives. If an archive already exists at another institution, we encourage donors to donate over there. But right now, the criteria that we've been doing is we are focusing on historically marginalized groups and trying to broaden the story of Alaska, which seems to be lacking in some areas of our subject matter, and maybe not focusing so much on those subjects that we have large quantities already of. So I could say an example is we have lots of pipeline photos, but maybe we don't have pipeline photos from different perspectives. So we evaluate that. So we kind of use these criteria of, is the story around this particular subject matter fully being told through the resources we already have, or are there some gaps? So case by case, we try really to encourage community members to, if there is a cultural institution or library in their home community, to consider that, because we really truly believe in, or I do and my team does, and for our department, really believe that source materials should go back to community members. We can always have copies. I mean, that's the great thing about photos. So that, also goes for family members. We don't want people donating things here that maybe they feel in the end really should belong with family members. We want everything to be, we want donors to leave here feeling good about what they're donating. But we do look and see how best we can store things, as well as how to best make sure, like maps is a good example. So, perhaps newer maps may not be collected because they are already digitized and reproduced. But if something makes it unique, or there's annotations, or there's an older map that is specifically of this place, or it's not a map that we already have. So we kind of look at all that. And with published materials, it's a little easier because you can search and see what other institutions. So we really do pay attention if there's another institution in Anchorage or South Central that has it, and whether another institution in the state, because we don't need to duplicate that work. And we are a non-circulating library, so that really limits those kinds of donations. But definitely in the archival world, it's a group decision. So there's 4 of us on it that discuss every donation. I'm sorry, that was a little long-winded.
No, thank you.
A great question.
Yeah. So in the workspace, it's a multi-purpose space. My workstation is here. The corner station, we have a contract cataloger working. She magically went through all of the Wells Fargo books and is currently working on some of our other backlog and newly acquisition books. We also, as you can see, we've got some stacks of books here, so it's a working space. We also just this week started up having volunteers again. So some of them work in here and some of them work out in the main room, depending on their project and their space needs and whatnot. Currently right here, we've got a little Boyer station. So if any of you are unfamiliar, we have the Boyer collection, Robert Boyer's photography studio. So it's a really great slice of Anchorage history because he photographed so many residents, all walks of life. So there's a lot of material to get through. It's not going to be a quick project. If you saw earlier around the room, all these little sort of white cream colored boxes are all Boyer, and that's only a small fraction of the collection. So it's a big work in progress, but it's great to have for genealogy work and just a general representation of Anchorage. So if you or your family members have ever commissioned photos from Boyer, we probably have them. So feel free to reach out if you're interested in seeing any of those photos.
These are the Boyer boxes directly.
Yes, and there are more of those orders downstairs. There are 250 Blue Board banker boxes. So if you can imagine, it's a lot to process.
Yes, it'll probably take a couple decades.
Yeah, we estimate Chloe and I will not be able to finish it within our tenure, and probably
Right.
not the people that succeed us. So
Here's a close-up of the Boyer. Do you want to talk about how you're rehousing them?
Sure. So mostly the orders have a mixture of prints and negatives in them. Not all of them. It depends on the order. But so for the prints, for all of them, we are only taking the images that were ordered and only up to a certain amount for space reasons and to not duplicate too much. As a lot of the shots are very similar. And then I'm not going to show you exactly because it'll be a whole thing. But so for the prints, oh yeah, sure, I can show you a finished folder. So for the prints, we are taking them out and rehousing them in Mylar or these sleeves, depending on how many prints there are. So for this one, there's 2 prints and 2 negatives, so they could all fit in this one sleeve together. If it was just a single print, it would be, a single sleeve. And we're keeping the order form too, so you can see, the names and the year and the order number. Sometimes if it was a yearbook one, it tells you which one ends up in the yearbook. That way you can get some information. Sometimes it also will tell you, like, if it's a family shot, it'll tell you who are the parents and the ages of the children and things like that. Their employer maybe. So there's a lot of good information in some of these orders as well. And yeah.
I think that covers for it.
Yeah. It's a nice collection.
Yeah.
Um,
Do we have any questions so far about the workspace and how we process?
I think
If not, that's okay.
that's okay. We're gonna walk back outside to look at some of the other types of resources we have.
Should we start artist files next?
One thing that we also have lots of in this space, which is nicely hidden, but there's a lot of them, are the artist files. So all of the cabinets that sort of line the perimeter of this research room are all full of files of information of exhibitions, biographies, things like that, from artists that we have worked with or purchased art from.
Yeah.
Things like that.
So, and the artist files are really great because especially before everything was going towards digitization and computer cataloging, we have our original card catalogs, but with our artist files, we also have artists that people don't really know about, or we get a random request.
Because I have to be on this side of you.
Yes. So, as Chloe was saying, they're very full and they wrap from behind Monica all the way around to the end of the bookcase that we saw at the very beginning. But what's really great is we do have ones, and pull out one of our fuller ones so you can see. So they're labeled AA, Draper William, and if someone were looking for, say, basic bio information, we actually have right on top some really great data on him. And so each file is a little bit different. Unfortunately, not everyone looks like this. Some of them are literally like a slip of paper that just has a note of so-and-so asked about this person, and I found out he was born in 1905 and died possibly 1955. So those aren't as great, but one of the cool things that we are doing, and our intern currently right now, who is through the history program at UAA, is going through and adding files if we don't have one for current artists that we're working with. So through our virtual artist in residence program, so like ones that have been created are for Jill Costine Meserve. Let's see. This one's great because I have some handwritten information to Walter, if anybody knows and remembers Walter Van Horn from his days here. So these are all accessible. Anyone is welcome to come in. We are working on a comprehensive inventory of the artist files, but kind of like the Boyer, it's a massive undertaking, so it's going very slowly, but we are trying to get through things. And hey, this is a lovely Xerox from Alaska History.
You planned that, didn't you?
Oh, yes, totally.
So how many artist files do we have approximately? Do we think? Is it 12,000, 13,000?
I would estimate, yeah, comfortably between 12 and 13,000. And adding, there are also, one good thing about going through and doing the inventory is that we're finding some duplication or some of the names that may have been misspelled, or if there's alternate spellings, especially with some Indigenous artists that we didn't even know we had. Maybe we think it's over in one section, but we find it at another, or it's collapsed with another folder. So we're able to actually go through and evaluate and break things out. So one of the other big things that we're working on right now is undertaking reparative description. We're just in the very beginning stages of that. But if anyone doesn't know about reparative description, it's kind of trying to address some of the language that we have in the collection. So outdated terms that we're not using in our regular cataloging. such as Eskimo, Aleut, terms that may be harmful or offensive. And we're starting with our subject folders in our vertical files just to get a sense of where some of them are, and to get a baseline. So one of the reasons that this is happening is that with an intern that we had previously who actually worked on a Black and people of color subject guide, was she requested to have a list of terms that she should be looking for and should notify us if she finds them or should be avoiding in her work. So it's a really good experience for us in thinking about that process and what we're doing. And so one of the things that we're doing with the vertical files is assessing what's actually in them. The vertical files, a lot of the times, like if it's something that was gifted or donated but didn't really fit the scope of what could be accessioned, got put in here for as a reference. So one of the things for us too is that there's a lot of duplicates in the vertical files, which is great, but also we don't need everything that's in the file. So it's been good for us to go through and assess, and we've actually come across some things where we're like, this maybe needs to go in a special subject file, maybe under racist or stereotyping content, so that we can have a little bit of care when someone comes in and doesn't just encounter it. If they're looking for it, they can find it, but it's not gonna be right in their face if they're not wanting to see it.
And I think this is a big movement in archives nationally as well. And so it's been pretty wonderful that we've been able to focus on that a little bit. I mean, I say focus, but as you all know, there's a myriad of duties that the archivists have. And so it's one of the things that they keep working at. So there may not be an end in sight, because I think some of those reparative descriptions, they have to continually be worked upon, because there'll be things that you come across. And so the vertical files generally have a lot of tourist and maybe stereotyping of people and places, and have a lot of very hurtful language. And then also qualifiers, which we all sometimes do in descriptions, really have no place. Because sometimes those qualifiers can be put not purposefully, but in the sort of unintentional pejorative selection of words. And so working towards that in the descriptive language.
Yeah, and as Monica mentioned too, it very much, we're intending it to be a living document. Right. So language changes all the time, as we all know. So as terms maybe get clarified or adjusted, we're hoping to be able to be flexible and address that not only within the vertical files, but also our cataloging, which is the main intention of coming up with a reparative description. And so we know the terms and the language that we look out for, but someone else who comes in after us may not, or an intern that we're working with and hoping to impart some wisdom and some knowledge as they begin their career. It's really great conversations for us to have, and we've learned a lot, and we're building on it, not only within the archival descriptions that we're encountering, but we're also including language like that we got from our advisory committee from Black Lives in Alaska, and also that we had a glossary of terms for the Extra Tough Women of the North exhibition. So we're really trying to address not only what's happening in our space, but also be responsive and reflective of what's happening in the museum as well.
That's great, Heather, thanks. Can you, Chloe, describe what we're looking at? I mean, I know you're seeing that, but you're flipping through. It's hard because, the camera's a little further away, but which subject vertical file are we in?
So we are in the railroad, and this specific one, since there's a lot of railroad ephemera and information, there's a few other subjects as well that are separated by decade. So we're looking at 1940 to 1949 publications and other things that were put out or dated in that time range.
And all related to the Alaska Railroad.
All related, yeah. Put out by or talking directly about the Alaska Railroad.
Yeah. And so I think many people know we have really a wonderful Alaska Railroad collection, but if people are interested in searching the vertical files or any of our digitized there are lots of ways to access our resources.
Yes.
Yes, there is a list of all of the subject headings for the vertical files on our website, along with all of the finding aids and other subject guides. If anyone is unaware, we also have a sort of recently put out image search tool.
Yep.
So you may be familiar with the BILDA, I forget the proper name,
Alaska's Digital Archive.
Alaska's Digital Archive. So some very small selection of our digitized images are on that tool, but our in-house image search tool has everything digitized that we have available.
Yeah,
So
I think
it's a
our
lot more.
count is up to 19,500, something like that.
100.
Is it 100?
Well, we were at 90.
You're right.
I think we're almost at 100,000
Almost
now.
100,000. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Which is great, because that's about a seventh of our entire holding, so.
And we are prioritizing the collections like we talked about, Eleanor's and Ed's. As they come in, we're scanning all of that material so that it can go up and be searchable on that tool, but also other collections. We're trying to get an assortment so that people can get a quick look and feel for what's in that collection without having to do some guesswork from the finding aids. But we are also going through and updating the finding aids as well.
Yeah, so anything new coming in, if it's like Heather was talking about, anything related to marginalized communities, it's all getting digitized. If they're small enough that it's manageable to digitize everything, we can do that. But for the larger collections, like the Boyer, or we recently also got Randy Brandon's photography studio, Third Eye Photography, and it's a bunch of great content, but it's massive, so it wouldn't be feasible to digitize everything. But there's a really good sampling. I don't think it's available online yet, but it will be soon. But the finding aid is available, so and it's mostly processed.
Yeah. So, speaking of digitization and having digital images, one of the other major projects that we have is taking printouts of unidentified individuals and some communities to AFN, Alaska Federation of Natives.
It was a project that was started by Teresa Williams and Sarah Piasecki back in, I want to say 2012, I think, or 2013.
Yeah.
And so it was on hiatus with COVID, but we're really excited that next week we will all be there along with staff from and members from Chickaloon Native Tribe, because part of our outreach will be to try to reach some of their tribal members in addition to the people who are just attending AFN that would normally come.
Right.
So it's super exciting. So if you're here in Anchorage next week and want to stop in, please do.
Booth 100 or 101?
Yes, one of those two. And both Chloe and Heather and Amy Valentine and Julie Verree, all four staff who work here in the archives and library, and myself and some other curators and collections managers. We have sort of a slew of people kind of helping out to try to get back to maybe we're shooting for the wonderful work that Sarah and Tressa and Zane used to do. We're learning, but they're our models, exactly. And I'm not sure if there are any questions, Cody. Our space hasn't changed terribly. We still have all of our really wonderful research tables here for individual researchers or pairs of researchers, in addition to the main table that Heather and Chloe shared. So we have options depending on how you like to work, because intergenerational learning and researching sometimes is better at a larger table. But then we still have space over here that's quiet and intimate for those researchers working by themselves. And we're not open freely yet in the archives. We take appointments.
Yep.
And so our contact is on the website, as well as you can always call us at 929-9235-907 area code, or email is resourcecenter@anchoragemuseum.org. All of these things are on the website. And I really encourage people to go check out the image search tool. I'm sure you'll find mistakes. We're only human. But we're trying to get more and more imagery up because that was the other thing that we received from our survey, was that people really, really wanted to be able to search from their homes or from their own computers rather than coming in. So pretty excited about that.
Yeah, and it's awesome for us too, because if we're looking for something for an exhibit or a researcher, we just go straight to the tool. So
Yeah. It allows us to answer reference requests quicker as well.
Right.
So, and we're always here to help. Yeah. If you even just have a question, you know, please feel free to call or send an email.
Yeah.
Still not currently taking walk-ins. We do, as we have appointments and other things going on, we might not always be available right on the spot, but we really are here for you. So please do reach out.
and it's, as we mentioned before, we do have vulnerable community members coming in, so that is part of our reason for maintaining research appointments only at this time. But we really do want to be accessible and available when people need us, so please do reach out.
Wonderful. I'm not seeing any other questions, so I think, oh, sorry, one has just come through. Are you involved with the projects to digitalize Alaska's archival newspapers and putting them online for public access? If so, can you give us a status update?
No, that would be the Alaska State Library and Archives, so would have to contact them down in Juneau. We do access it, and it is a wonderful tool. I highly recommend it. I think they only have up until 1930 scan, but please do not quote me because I'm not involved with that project. So, and as you heard earlier, me and numbers are not best friends. So.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, there's so many great projects happening around the state. I mean, because of the CARES Act money that came through, so many libraries, archives, and museums really benefited. So for us, at the Anchorage Museum, we were able to hire a wonderful metadata specialist who was able to go through and enter metadata for photographs that were already digitized, and then add more keywords to those same photographs. And I don't have the final count, but I want to say that overall, I think he probably put his hands on something like 15 or 20,000 photographs, and added metadata for that, which is not up on the website yet, but is available here in-house, at least for us to search so we can help. And it has helped us immensely in getting more information so that when people are looking for specific subject matter, it's a little easier to find. And as we all know, the more metadata there is, the more access there will be. So those are things to look forward to.
Yeah.
Well, if there aren't any other questions, we're going to say goodbye.
Yes, but thank you everyone for coming.
Thank
And
you so much.
like we keep saying, please do come, please reach out. We would love to see faces, and every research appointment helps us learn the collection better. So we're always excited to have people in.